A slice of life from Verdant Hollow, sacred ground of the Iron Soul. In Verdant Hollow, time didn't flow in hours. It bloomed, every morning when the sky was still lavender and the mist curled low through the evergreens. Lannet Broadstem walked the moss-traced path from her cottage to the spire grove. She carried a wicker basket, a pair of bone shears, and a weathered notebook bound in boiled birch bark. Her destination wasn't far, just a gentle slope beneath an old felled pine where 5 mushrooms grew in a perfect circle. Each was a different species. Each bloomed at a slightly different hour of the day, and in Verdant Hollow, that was clock enough. Today the whitecap had just opened. That meant it was 2 hours past dawn. Lannet smiled. Right on time. She knelt by the circle and made a few careful notes. The speckled gray cap had grown wider than usual. That meant early rain. The ash-violet puffball was still closed. That meant the tradesman from the southern road hadn't arrived yet. It always opened when his oxen passed by the gatepost. No one knew why. They just accepted it. Behind her, the grove rustled. She turned just enough to see Carvin Tull, the old cloth dyer, approaching with his usual limp and a jug of mushroom ale slung over one shoulder. "Morning, Lannet," he wheezed. "Whitecap's open." "I see it," she replied. "Don't suppose you remembered to bring back my shears from last week?" Carvin looked guilty. "I brought the jug." She snorted, stood, and motioned for him to sit beside her on the log. "That's not the same thing." "No, but it's better company." They drank. The ale was bitter and warm and tasted faintly of burnt walnuts. Around them, the grove ticked in its own slow rhythm. Farther out, beyond the trees, the old ash path wound its way toward the stone chapel at the hill's crest, a humble structure of gray fieldstone and green roof tile, watched over by paladins of the Order of the Iron Soul. Their banners hung still in the early breeze. Verdant Hollow was their place now, consecrated after the storm and sealed with memory. No signs, no fanfare, just the weight of reverence that clung to the moss like dew. At mid-morning, the red cap flared open. Lannet stood, brushing moss from her skirt. "That's the bell," she said. "Time to check the hives." "Want company?" "Only if you carry the bucket." They walked together down a quiet track, passing the old chapel's garden wall, where someone had left an offering of river stones stacked in quiet prayer. The Iron Soul's watch was discreet here. No armor, no commands, just a few gentle nods and soft greetings. Even the bees seemed to hum more gently near the chapel. The hives were carved into a hillside barrow just beyond the boundary stone. The bees weren't natural, not since the royal touched the forest's edge. They glowed faintly and sang in trios, but their honey was clean, and the order used it in both balm and bread. As they harvested, a distant horn echoed from the south trail. Lannet shaded her eyes. Sure enough, a trader's cart came rumbling up the pass. No wheels, just smooth bronze runners gliding over the earth. A cart built by hands that remembered Magitech but didn't dare call it that in the open. The device sputtered as it neared the edge of hollow ground. Sparks flew, it groaned, slowed, and stopped. The trader climbed out and began to walk, reins in hand, as though nothing odd had happened. Magic never lasted long here, not near where Saren died. By late afternoon, the sun kissed the tips of the orange-cap mushroom. Supper hour. Children ran along the chapel wall, their laughter echoing under the great beech trees. A paladin seated on the porch smiled at them, polishing his boots with a torn scrap of silk. Lannet returned to her cottage, set her basket on the table, and lit her hearth. On her windowsill sat a small piece of storm glass, not for magic, but for memory. She watched it glint in the waning light and offered a silent word for the one who had stood fast when the hollow had no name. When the first storm had passed and the hollow had grown green again. Outside, the violet puffball finally opened. The trader had arrived, right on time.